Oh, there's Katie, and the mic is open for the meeting.
So can I start now?
Yes.
Are you ready?
Yes.
Good afternoon. I'd like to call to order the April 24th Regional Transit Partnership meeting and greet everyone and say hello, glad everybody's here. Our first item of business is to approve Katie Miller from DRPT joining us this afternoon electronically. So Katie, could you unmute and tell us where you're located and your reason for electronic participation?
Yeah, I am located in Richmond, Virginia, and I just got back from this afternoon from Northern Virginia from the National RTAP Review Board meeting, so wasn't going to be able to make it to Charlottesville in time.
Thank you very much. So with that, I will entertain a motion to invite Katie to join our meeting.
So moved.
So we have a motion and a second from Mike. All right, would you call for the vote, Lucinda?
Yes. Supervisor McKeel.
Yes.
Counselor Pinkston.
Yes.
Counselor Oshrin.
Yes.
Supervisor Pruitt.
Aye.
Director Parker. Miss Miller. Director Silsdorf.
Yes.
And Director Pilipowski.
All right, with that, welcome, Katie. And we normally start with introductions. We do have a new person here today joining us, but we'll start with you, Katie. Would you introduce yourself and just tell everybody what organization you represent?
Katie Miller, I am with the Virginia Department of Rail and Public Transportation.
Okay, and I'm going to swing around to Garland.
Garland Williams, Cat.
Christine Jacobs, Executive Director, Thomas Jefferson Planning District Commission.
Mike JAUNT.
Hey, Mike, you have a new person here today for the first time. Would you like to introduce him to the group?
I think now I will. Yeah, Nick Pilipowski has been on the JAUNT board for a little bit under a year as an Albemarle representative. He is filling the urban JAUNT slot as somebody who lives just outside the city, in the Penthouse region, and professionally brings some additional transit knowledge based on his role at Burma Box.
Nick, now, introduce yourself and you want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Nick Pilipowski here representing the JAUNT Urban. As Mike said, I'm currently in the Director of Transit position at Burma Robotics, so working with all of our federal and state customers and how we're improving and trying to improve transit safety through adding in either vehicle automation or ADAS systems to buses and different transit systems around the country. I've lived here in Charlottesville since 2001, on and off, and happy to be here.
Welcome. You bring a nice expertise to this group. That's great. Experience. Yes. Well, welcome aboard. All right, continuing on.
Scott Sulsdorf, Director of Parking and Transportation at UVA.
Jean Gellner, Albemarle County Public Schools.
Mike Pruitt, Albemarle County Supervisor.
Brandon Kingston, Charlottesville City Council.
Diana McKeel, Albemarle County Board of Supervisors.
Natalie Oshrin, Charlottesville City Council.
Ben Chambers, Transportation Planning Manager for City of Charlottesville.
Peter Thompson, Charlottesville Area Alliance.
Peter Krebs, the Piedmont Environmental Council.
Devin Thompson, Transit Program Manager at Central Shenandoah Planning District Commission.
Taylor Jenkins, Director of Transportation at TJPDC.
Lucinda Shannon, Senior Regional Planner at TJPDC, and I staff this committee.
And Gretchen Thomas with PJPDC. And let's go ahead and introduce the folks in the back.
Okay. Here, Jen Fleischer, Blue Health District.
Zoe Mecklenburg, Transit Planner, City of Charlottesville.
Sally Duncan, candidate for Board of Supervisors. Okay.
Tanya Schwarzenberger with Albemarle County Planning Department.
All right, well, thanks for everybody being here today. The next item is approval of our agenda. So, hearing no concerns about the agenda, I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda. So moved. All right, Natalie and Brian is seconding. Lucinda, do you want to call the roll for that vote?
Supervisor McKeel,
Yes.
Counselor Pinkston,
Yes.
Counselor Ostrom,
Yes.
Supervisor Pruitt,
Aye.
Director Parker is not, Katie Miller,
Aye.
Director Silsdorf,
Yes.
and Director Pilipowski.
Yes.
All right. And the next item are our meeting minutes from February the 27th, which seems a long time ago. But everybody had a chance to take a look at them. Were there any edits or anything anybody wanted to mention about the minutes? If not, I would entertain a motion to approve the minutes for February the 27th. So Brian made a motion.
Second.
We have a roll going here, right? So now they made a second. All right, Lisa, you want to call the vote?
Supervisor McKeel,
Yes.
Counselor Pinkston,
Yes.
Counselor Ostrom,
Yes.
Supervisor Pruitt,
Aye.
Ms. Miller, Director Silsdorf,
Aye.
and Director Pilipowski.
All right, so we have minutes approved. Matters from the public. Lisa, do we have anyone who's asked to speak from the public?
If there's anybody here from the public, you can raise your hand now, and if anybody online would like to speak at this time, please use Zoom to raise your hand. And we don't have anybody from the public.
And we just have, Randy just came in, so Randy, as you're finding a place, would you introduce yourself?
I'm Randy Parker. I'm the rural representative for JAUNT.
Great, welcome. We need to find you a chair and a place that can take it. There you go.
There's room over here.
There you go.
This is the place to be, I understand.
We're very popular today, but it's great to have everybody here. And we have not seen some of you, I'm looking out at the end of the table, we have not seen some of you for a while either. But anyway, it's all good. All right.
Christine.
He's nicely tanned, he's been so long.
We're good.
And then you can stay there, that works. All right, we have everybody in place. Our first item on the agenda is the City of Charlottesville Transit Planning Update from Ben. So Ben, if you will.
Lucinda, do you want me to come up there?
No, I can do it from there because then people can hear you.
Okay.
Better.
Cool.
And remember to project as best you can.
Absolutely.
Sorry.
Okay.
Hold on.
Still
Sorry.
working, that's okay.
I was directed to go this here.
The recording picks up his voice better if he's actually up there.
Oh, it does?
That's good.
For the recording purposes.
so weird.
Yeah, that's great, that's fine. Candy, can you hear us all right?
Yeah.
Can you hear us all right?
So I can hear you guys.
Okay, good.
All right.
And are you seeing the presentation? Just checking. Okay.
Oh, no, I just have the, well, I do have the PowerPoint. Yeah, if you want it. It's in there. And then fill it with it. Yeah.
So I'm gonna change the application version.
I think, yeah, we have to, stop sharing the animation. Sorry.
So this is the Charlottesville Transit Planning Update.
All right.
Maybe a full screen.
Yes.
Full screen. There you go, perfect.
Okay.
And then, so that
Yep.
people,
Yeah.
you'll minimize that.
If you could move Katie out.
Sorry. All right. That should work, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, so I was asked to provide an update on what we're doing with transit planning in the city for a couple of reasons, I believe. One was this was a big topic of conversation towards the end of our budget cycle, which just wrapped up a week or so ago. The other is, you may have heard as we were going around giving introductions, that the city now has a transit planner. So partly we're explaining what she does, and partly we're explaining what we're going to be doing together over the next 8 to 12 months, because we have a lot of work to do around transit planning, both in the city and in the region as a whole. So the city.
Would you just speak up a little bit?
Yeah, sure.
You're fighting the air conditioner
great.
or whatever that noise is.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
The building's taking off.
Yeah.
So the city is playing 2 different roles in the transit space. We are both a jurisdictional partner and a transit agency. On the jurisdictional partner side, we are a member of CARTA, we are a member of the RTP, we're a member of JAUNT. We provide local funding for operations and capital when it comes to transit services. And we are working on our own citywide transportation plan coming up over the next year. I'm currently working on scoping out what that might look like, but it will include transit, which is a bit different than what we've done in the past, where we've done a bike ped plan and a streets that work plan, and we don't really fold in transit into our greater citywide transportation plans. That's going to be a change that we do over the next couple of years. On the transit agency side, we own and operate CAT. We employ a very large workforce in the city that works for CAT. We own and maintain a fleet of vehicles. We have a large facility out on Avon Street. We also have the facility downtown that's the transfer center. We operate with funding from the city and with funding from the county and with funding from the state and funding from the feds. And CAT has its own plan. It has a transit strategic plan that it submitted to the state last year and is trying to work through implementing. So what does this look like for our workload in the next year or so? We have a lot of planning needs in the next year or so on both sides of that role that we're playing. As a jurisdictional partner, we're going to be working with y'all to figure out what the priorities are for CARTA, figure out where we're getting funding for those priorities, and how we go to the legislature to ask for that funding and that capability. We're also, as I mentioned, currently scoping out what our citywide transportation plan will look like, so that's a big transit emphasis for us as well. On the transit agency side, we are already starting to think through what is happening next year in our fiscal year budget. We're also working through how do we implement our alternative fuel feasibility study, make that transition to a zero emission fleet, and that includes transitioning our vehicles, expanding our fleet as well at the same time, which those 2 things at the same time are pretty pricey, and we have to figure out how to do that. We're also figuring out where those vehicles fit on our current facility and how we need to change the facility and what capital needs we have at that facility. We're going to be starting up NEPA work on that so that we can understand what the impacts of that would be. We also want to know that we're serving people at the bus stops that they're waiting at, so we're starting up a bus stop inventory and then looking at where we can expand amenities at our bus stops. And then 2 things that we do special with our transit agency that not a lot of others do, we also run school bus service. So we're also looking at how do we transition that fleet to a different fuel type to make it less impactful on our environment. And then recently we have been working through rezoning for our city schools. That's going to have an impact on where our school bus routes go. And we're going to need to look at that over the next year and understand what's the alignment of routes that we're going to need to serve our city schools and make sure that we're still providing service to those areas that we say are not the parent responsibility zones, but the city's responsibility. So today I kind of want to focus on these ones that are in the red. The CARTA priorities, the funding model, the legislative package, and CAT's expansion plans and budget prep for FY27. So first I want to start with that one because it feels like the juiciest one. So during our city council budget process, there was a clear emphasis on we need to figure out how to expand our services, get to Sunday services, night services, frequent services on our regular weekday services. And we didn't really think there was a way to fit it into our budget this year, partly because of when that came up in the budget cycle conversation. And so we prioritized having that conversation for the next fiscal year by starting that conversation the day after the budget was passed for this year. We all sat in a room together and started thinking through, well, what sort of things could we possibly bring to council in the next year and possibly expand? What is feasible? What kind of scenarios do we need to look at for them to consider? So we are currently building out what those scenarios would look like. They're going to look at different improvements like Sunday service, nighttime services, 30-minute weekday services system-wide, improve Saturday services, higher frequency services on higher ridership routes. And I'm not saying we're doing all of this. I'm saying we're looking at what all of those different things cost so that then we can have a conversation that's based on data that tells us how many drivers do we need to do this? How many buses do we need to do this? Do we have the funding to be able to pull this off locally? Or is this something that we need to figure out how we can pull in more resources from outside and maybe wait for more state assistance on this for? So this data is not us making decisions by ourselves at the city. This is us knowing that we're gonna have some hard conversations with our partners in the county and with our partners throughout the region about what kind of transit service we're gonna need to serve. And we need to start having that conversation as soon as our next budget cycle. So we're getting ready so that we have that data to support those conversations with our partners. That data is also going to support some of the conversations we're having at Cardiff about our priorities. So we are looking at starting a study that looks at our previous regional transit vision plan, along with existing agency plans at JAUNT and CAT, and any plans that UVA may have for connections into UVA campus. We are trying to identify what are the regionally significant investments that we can make in that network. We're not just looking at CAT with this study, but the work that we were doing for CAT's TSP and for their budget discussions for the upcoming year will be considered in this, but we're not just looking at fixed route, we're also looking at other services like commuter services, microtransit, any kind of transit thing that was in any of our plans before. We're putting that into the pile for consideration and then figuring out what rises to the top, what do we need to go to the state and ask for funding for right now. The good news on this study is that we applied for a technical assistance grant with DRPT. There's currently a staff recommendation that that study be funded. That will go before the CTV at their next meeting, and then they will decide whether we get the funding, but it seems very good likelihood that we will be able to get that funding. Yes.
When is that meeting?
I believe it's June, but Katie can correct me, but I believe it's June and the funding becomes available in the next fiscal year. The not so great news is the last part of that sentence though, which is the funding doesn't become available until the next fiscal year. And we kind of have a really tight timeline between now and January to start figuring out what our priorities are if we're gonna go to the legislature. So we're starting scoping ahead of getting that funding because we do know that one way or the other, we're gonna have to look at existing conditions. We're gonna have to have somebody read through all of our existing plans and pull out the recommendations and figure out how they pull together in an apples to apples comparison. So we're starting up that scoping discussion now with TJPDC and our partners in the county. And we're also going to be staffing some of that labor in advance of pulling in consultant support so that we have a head start. And they're not starting with task 1, they're starting with task 2 or 3 on that project that we're working through. So getting a head start on that, but looking good that we're going to have some additional support down the line. I sort of pulled these two bullets together because they're kind of two sides of the same coin. So as I mentioned, we're going to be on track for a very tight turnaround to try to get into an omnibus bill in July 2026. That's not very far away. So we have to start having some hard conversations about what that's going to look like very soon. So we're starting to work with our contacts at the legislature. TJPDC is reaching out to get some more background information on what exactly this omnibus bill is going to look like and how we might be able to participate in it. But we have also decided to move forward with pulling in our finance budget folks from city and county to start talking about what does look feasible, what does the size of that look like, how do we explain this to everyone that we're going to need to raise more money to put more money into transit. That discussion will not just be happening in the silo of finance and budget folks. They're also going to have to be interacting with that prioritization project because we need to know what is the pool of what we're prioritizing, and that may also influence their discussion of, well, how much money do we actually need to figure out how to create? So there's going to be some back and forth in that discussion over the next few months, but the key event is us starting now to have that conversation.
Ben, can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
Have we started speaking with our delegates in our state senator?
Not with them directly, but we are speaking with like legislative aid folks.
I think you could just go ahead and set up some time. I'd be happy to help with that, with delegate. law firm, Delegate Carlson and Senator Deeds, I mean, they'd be happy to sit down with us. They're all local, so.
Yeah.
It would help, I think, inform this process.
Yeah, great. So we'll give David about setting that up. I don't have any additional information other than we have a new transit planner. Her name's Zoe McComer. She's sitting in the back. Please say hi. Please be nice. And she is excited to jump on board and jump into all of this. She's coming to Virginia as a brand new first-time transit planner. We're still figuring out what that means because we've never had a transit planner in the city of Charlottesville. So it's very exciting for all of us to have her on board. And we're really excited to get her started on all this work.
So why don't we take an opportunity, you want to just tell us a little bit about yourself and where you're from and
Yeah.
yourself.
Absolutely great to meet everybody. I'm sure we'll be working more closely in smaller, more intimate settings, so I'll get to know you better then. But to start us off, I am from North Carolina, so I've been kind of in the Mid-Atlantic my whole life. I grew up in Charlotte, went to school in the Triangle, graduated from Duke last May with a degree in urban planning. But yes, I'm very new to transit planning, so I'm converting to that, and this was just my first kind of big professional job, and also my first time living in Virginia. So I'm excited to be here, both learning professionally and learning the area as a resident.
Welcome.
We're glad you're here. And you are from a university, are you?
Yes, so I'm seeing a lot of similarities
Yes.
with the Duke-Durham relationship,
Yes.
UVA, Scott and I have already mentioned, the UVA and Charlottesville relationship as well.
One of the differences you'll find is that Virginia is a Dillon rule state from North Carolina. That's one thing you'll have to figure out, but anyway.
That was
Welcome.
a point of conversation when I was in North Carolina.
Well, welcome, you're glad you're here. Yeah.
Any other questions?
Is she going to be located under CAT or in your shop?
So she's a member of the NDS department, but she actually sits out of CAT. So we're sort of sharing in a way that we keep her out of CAT. She learns the system, she learns how it operates, she learns from a great operator who knows how scheduling works, because that's a big part of her job as well, is when we make these changes, somebody has to implement them into the schedule.
Yeah.
And that's gonna be a large part of her job. So she's taken in a lot, learning a lot of transit stuff that sort of feels like second nature to us, but it's a brand new experience for her, so it's great.
And Ben, while you're talking about CAT, let everybody know where CAT is actually located, because there may be some people in this room who do not know where CAT is located.
Yeah, it's out on Avon Street. It's in the county. It is not in city property. It's just south of the city on Avon Street.
We like your taxes.
Yeah, I'm sure. And our school bus lot is right next to that, as is our park and ride lot, which a lot of people don't know exists. So please use our park and ride if you can.
I was just teasing, but anyway.
Yeah.
It's not too far from ACRJ.
It really is.
If people are sort of thinking about, it's right down the road. So let me open it up for questions to Ben on his report. Anybody have any questions?
Oh, good. All right.
I have one.
Yeah.
How does just a comment, certainly we've struggled in the county with no Sunday service for hospital and people trying to get to work, and so that's great to hear. I'm just throwing that out there that we really needed Sunday service for people to get to work, so that's great. How does MicroCat, the timing for MicroCat, and I'm looking at Garland who's nodding his head. So Albemarle County has how much time left on MicroCat? Is it a year and a half?
You got till November of this year for the second year, and then you would have the start of your third option, your third year option.
So at that point, the county will need to figure out what we're going to do with MicroCat as far as continue it, change it, what the model might be. So I just want to make sure that that's included in some of the discussions that you all have over the next year, right?
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, that's part of the discussion that we will all have over the next year,
Well,
because this is gonna end up.
I'm not gonna be here, but I want to make sure, because
Yes,
MicroCat has
point taken.
certainly been hugely popular. But it's only in 2 areas in the county right now, so just, yeah. And just to add to that, we were told, Katie, were you the person that told us at one of the last meetings that the next General Assembly session will be transportation heavy? Somebody said that. Oh, I know who
I
it
said
was.
that.
It
I
was,
might not have said it.
no, it was the person that we had, Danny Plummer from the.
Danny Plugger from the Virginia Transit Association.
And he said to expect the General Assembly session, you remember, Brian, this next session, to be transportation heavy.
I've heard that from other sources.
So just something to keep in mind, and maybe good for us.
It's the omnibus bill that's causing that heaviness on the transit side.
Yeah.
They need to fix some stuff in New Virginia.
Yeah, and that makes sense.
Yeah.
So maybe a good sign, I don't know.
We can sneak in there.
Yeah.
That's the plan.
Yes, Mike.
I mean, November, right, isn't that far away, and so it's obviously in a fiscal year where the county is about to approve a budget in a couple of weeks.
Right.
Is there not a placeholder for microcat in the 26 budget?
Yes,
Oh, okay.
yes. I just couldn't remember the timing in my
All
head,
right.
that's all. I told my old brain, couldn't remember if it was a year or exactly.
So if I remember from your budget,
Yeah.
I think you put $1.3 million in as your cost for the program. That's to finish this year in, I can't remember how many months of the next fiscal year. But then there's a decision that has to be made.
We have to make the decision about
About
the
the
budget, right? Yeah. Any other questions for Ben? You're good. All right,
Well,
thank
I will
you.
hand it off to our speaker.
Thank you very much. Our next presentation is the Afton Express Annual Report, and we have Devin Thompson to make that report. She is from the Central Shenandoah Planning District Commission, and I found out she lives in my old hometown, Stanton. So welcome. Yeah. And I really did find this report really interesting.
Thank you.
I learned a lot,
Yeah.
and I appreciate it, so.
My coworker Danielle did an amazing job pulling all this together.
It's really good. All right.
Okay.
Do
Perfect.
you want folks to interrupt you with questions
Yes,
or wait
feel
till the
free
end?
to interrupt me. I am interruptible. So yeah, go
Okay.
for it anytime I'm up here, even when I'm sitting down. So again, thank you so much for taking the time to let me talk to you about Afton Express. You all know who I am by now, so I'll skip that part, but the Central Shenandoah Planning District Commission, we are sister agencies with TJPDC. We do administer Bright Bus Transit, of which Afton Express is a route. So today I'll give you a brief overview through Afton Express and go through some of the annual report that you all saw, and go through some of those ridership and passenger profiles, and then end with some current and future outlooks. So first of all, we would not be here today without our partners, which many of you were definitely involved in that. So Albemarle County, Augusta County, Charlottesville, Stanton, Waynesboro, University of Virginia, along with DRPT. So through the years of studies and financial commitments, you all have brought to life a very vital service for connecting our communities. So for that, I say thank you. So through DRPT, we were able to start a service with demonstration grant funds, which has an 80-20 match, just to start a service, make sure it's viable, make sure it's feasible, but we had many studies showing that it was feasible, it was viable. So this was just to get that momentum going. And so from there, we switched over to 5311 rural funding, which is a 50-50 match. So that was an increase for our partners. So we did go to DRPT and we made application for and received transit ridership incentive program funding, which eases that local match requirement while letting us work to expand the system. So through TRIP, we can keep that local partner match low while we go through those planned expansions and incrementally increasing those costs over the next 5 years for which the grant period goes through. So just to kind of give you all a snapshot to familiarize yourself with our routes and our stops, trips do originate on the western portion of this mountain, starting with Stanton Crossing Park and Ride Lot, Augusta Health, which is in Fishersville, and then Waynesboro at their Park and Ride Lot. After traversing the mountain, buses will stop at UVA at both the academic and medical departments, West Main Street and Amtrak, the Downtown Transit Center, the Omni Hotel and Downtown Mall, as well as Wegmans and 5th Street Station. And so continuing with this quick snapshot, fares are $3 per one-way trip, but we do have an option of a 10-trip fare card for $25 available. UVA affiliated riders have the benefit of Wahoo Commute, which allows their employees to ride for free, and I will touch more on that a little bit later because it's such a great program. I need to pull it out by itself. And so while riding in plush, comfortable seats, riders also have access to free Wi-Fi. And so all riders are eligible to sign up for rideshare, which is a joint program between TJPDC and CSPDC for commuter services. So if they are commuting and using alternative modes of transportation at least 2 times a week, they're eligible for a guaranteed ride home program in case an emergency comes up. They have the voucher or reimbursement to get back home for that emergency. So performance metrics. We are very excited to be seeing the ridership that we see. We made these plans pre-pandemic. So we had pre-pandemic numbers and then we had pandemic actual numbers. So seeing these numbers is great to see. But as you can see, we do have our usual trend of lower ridership in summer months and winter holidays, just due to people taking those vacation days and commuting less to work. But to kind of give you a comparison as you look at those month-by-month numbers, when we first started in 21 and 22, total monthly passenger trips averaged a little over 700. So then in 2023, we grew that to 1,300 average daily trips, and then in 2024, we averaged close to 1,600. So as you can see in this slide, you can see that very large increase in ridership, so we hope to continue to see that growth trend through the next years. So just to give you kind of a breakdown, that 2021, that was 1,900 passenger trips going up to 10,000, then 16,000, and then we had 19,000 trips in 2024. I won't give you the numbers for 2025 yet because we had a lot of snow days in January and February, but March was looking good. So through our creating this annual report, we have an annual survey that we put out to all of our riders just to not only have all of our quantitative data, but getting some qualitative data as well. So we asked them an array of questions and they're kind enough to answer because we do incentivize that with a prize. So as mentioned in the annual report, most of our respondents are riding the bus regularly. That's about a large majority of folks riding either 3 to 4 days a week or even all 5 days. So we're also pleased to see that that well-rounded split of rider longevity. So not only do you see a few folks that are just starting out with riding Afton Express, but we also see a lot of folks that have been riding for longer than a year. So we're happy to see that not only are we maintaining some ridership, but we're also still getting some new folks in. And it's always a pleasure to meet the day one riders when we do pop-up events. They're the kindest people. So additionally, you can see, and what is expected, that most of our riders fall within that typical working span of 25 to 64 years, which is in line with the commuting nature of our service. Racial and ethnic background questions were also included in the survey, so we found that Afton Express ridership generally reflects the racial makeup of the Stanton, Augusta, Waynesboro area, with folks predominantly identifying as white, but also with some smaller percentages of folks that identify as Black, Asian, or 2 different races, and about 10% of folks that identify as Hispanic and Latino. So then breaking down our trip profile, as expected, most commuters are starting over on the western end of the mountain and heading over to you all here. And that was about 95% of our respondents. But we do have about 3% of few folks that do the reverse commute. So they're starting over here in Charlottesville and Albemarle and heading over to Stanton, Augusta, and Waynesboro. So I always say kudos to those folks that make that reverse commute work because we always push it out as Stanton, Augusta to Charlottesville. And bus schedules are very hard to read. So, so the Waynesboro Park and Ride Lot and UVA Moore Health Sciences Library and the West Hospital Complex continue to be our most utilized stops. We found that in the last year that we did the annual survey and found it out as well this year. And then for the AM trip and PM trip distribution, we find for the 4 AM trips, trips 2 and 4 are most utilized with about 33% and 34% respectively. and trip through with a close third. So departures for those times, they're leaving the valley around 5:30 to 7:30 in the morning, and they're arriving here between about 6:30 and 8:30. And then from the 5 p.m. trips, folks are typically using trips 2 and 3, they're the most populated, and they're leaving here between the hours of 3:30 and about 5:53. So impact. I could go on and on about impact, but I broke it down into 3 main bullet points. So for environmental, so not only are we seeing decreased single occupancy vehicles along the I-64 corridor, that's also decreasing CO2 emissions. So from 21 respondents that are actively logging their trips in the Connecting VA app that's through rideshare, we were able to do some back-end calculations and see that just those 21 folks saved 180,000 pounds of CO2 emissions just in 1 year. And then not only that, but they're taking about 3,500 single occupancy vehicles off of that corridor as well. And then economically, as noted in the report, commuters are saving money on gas, vehicle repairs, and parking. They can spend that money here at lunch. They can spend it back in Charlotte, Stanton, Augusta, Waynesboro, and back into their communities. Saving money is definitely one of the widely cited reasons for why riders are choosing to take Afton Express. Again, through that calculation, through the Connecting VA app, we were able, just with those 21 respondents, they collectively saved over $32,000 on gas and over $64,000 on vehicle wear and tear just within the year. And then last but certainly not least is quality of life. We have very happy commuters. They're able to relax, they're able to reclaim their personal time, they take naps, they read, listen to music. They're reducing safety risks, so some of the workers are working 12-hour shifts, and then they're able to just get on the bus and relax on their way home rather than trying to drive tired. Folks have access to broader job opportunities and trainings, and they also are meeting members of their community that they might not otherwise meet. Something I found in going through the annual survey responses were that they loved that they were building this community on the bus, which is very adorable. So some highlights. Like I said, I wanted to pull out Wahoo Commute because it's such a great program. We were immensely excited when UVA implemented this program. So under this, again, all UVA affiliates ride Afton Express for free, and UVA Parking and Transportation subsidizes those fare costs. So beyond the beneficial opportunities for employees, as well as bolstering our ridership, it also is setting a precedent about how employers can deploy commuter services and benefits. Kendall always says that we are the gold standard of partnerships, and you all are the gold standard of being a partner. So it works out very well. Those employees are getting free rides, but they're also logging their trips and getting that money back into their paycheck. So to be eligible, they do forfeit their daily pass, correct? But they can still.
Their annual pass.
Their annual pass, but then they can get daily passes, correct? Yes. So it's a little bit of a trade-off, but a very good trade-off indeed. So this also helps UVA meet their carbon neutrality goal by 2030. Also during the year, we relocated a few stops on the western side of the mountain in Stanton and Fishersville. In Stanton, we had been stopping at the Stanton Mall, which those of you that don't know, it was a pile of rubble. So not a place that you want to wait for the bus. So luckily Stanton had their Stanton Crossing Park and Ride lot built. That was a VDOT project, so we now stop over at Stanton Park and Ride. That lot is also served by the Virginia Breeze, which is operated by the state. And then we also relocated the Fishersville stop from the Bright Transit facility in Fishersville, and we moved that to Augusta Health, who is one of our Bright Funding partners. They had reached out saying that they had a few folks doing the reverse commute and would like to see that stop closer, so we were able to, it's just a few minutes down the road, so we were able to shift that with little shake up in passengers. And then lastly, we also launched our mobile data collection system, which made the changeover from manual data entry giving to electronic, so that gives staff useful performance data more readily than on-off counts for like a week and then having that data for a year. So that system also included GPS on the buses, so in the future, we will be able to implement a third-party Where's My Bus app. And then looking ahead, we have some exciting plans on the horizon. So we actually just issued a notice to proceed to a consultant for technical assistance, analyzing ridership data and rider input to consider both possible service changes to Afton Express to better align with folks' schedules and passenger needs. So since inception, Afton Express work schedules have changed. Like I said, we launched in a pre-pandemic time. Things have changed, so we wanted to take this opportunity and improve upon the schedule in a way that not only utilizes our entire fleet of 3 buses with a spare, but also continuing to serve our current riders, as well as opening up potential for new riders. I know a lot of people have requested an 8:30 arrival time, so we are going to work our very hardest to hit those peak times that people have been requesting almost since day one. And then the Crozet Park and Ride Lot, that's going to be constructed off of I-64. Once that has been constructed, we will be stopping there, and that should just open up some access for some additional Albemarle County commuters, as well as maybe some Nelson County commuters. And then lastly, we made application for DRPT's Commuter Assistant Project Grant for transit marketing. Like Ben said, we have been approved for the staff recommended scenario for that. So as long as that is approved by CTD, we will have a marketing grant that'll allow us a multi-pronged marketing campaign that'll include photography, as well as a graphic designer to create some materials for some of those campaigns, and some TV ads, as well as some digital marketing like geofencing, weather apps, just to do a full comprehensive marketing to keep that ridership growth trend that we saw earlier. So like I said, during the annual report, we give folks time to give us feedback on how we're doing. A lot were overwhelmingly great. There's always complaints, but I didn't put those up here. I sifted through and found 2 that I thought were pretty good. Most centered around saving money, again, reclaiming time, environmentalism, opening up job opportunities, reduce stress, again, that found community, praise for the drivers, they definitely have their favorite drivers, and also saving on wear and tear for their vehicles. So I feel like their stories definitely send strong messages to folks to let you know the impact that you're having on people's daily lives. And so that's it for me. I will open it up for y'all to ask me any questions. Need any other additional information? Yes.
Yeah, that's really fantastic. Question, I should know this, I think, but who actually owns the buses? Is it Stanton?
So we have a different model where, as DRPT knows, we're always a unique model. We're never one to follow the mold. So we actually, as a PDC, we received the federal and state grants, several federal and state funds, and then we contract out the service. So we have a contracted service provider who provides the buses, the operators, the mechanics, all of that is lumped into a contract.
But it's managed by the...
But it's managed by us, by the CSPDC.
Is it the SAW, SAWPDC?
No, it's just Central Shenandoah Planning District Commission, but to make matters even more confusing, we oversee 2 metropolitan planning organizations, Stanton, Augusta, Waynesboro, NPO, and also Harrisonburg, Rockingham, NPO.
All right.
Again, we do not follow the mold.
It's the PDC that's the grant recipient.
So yeah.
Awesome.
Yes.
Maybe it's in the report in a spot I didn't see, but have you all done the math about how much, like, to numeratize how much people save, like, in terms of that wear and tear? It could be numeratized.
Yeah, we did it through the connecting VA, so like just the folks that are utilizing that and then projecting out those kind of costs. I'm sure we could probably extrapolate it to like show based on our ridership how much that is affecting, but we did it based on just those respondents who are actively logging their trips.
Yeah, because that's very powerful, because we always hear how much stuff costs, right? But how much you're not spending is something that nobody ever hears.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Very cool to have all these cars off the road.
Yes.
Yeah.
So these are not electric?
No, they are not. They are diesel buses.
Okay, so
that are
your
going
plan
up
is
and down.
eventually, I would assume.
We
something.
let the big guys do all the heavy lifting on finding out what's the best model for electrification. It seems right now that going over the mountain, I don't know, it would have to be,
It's a
I
steep
don't
mountain.
even know
Yeah.
how long we would have to wait for the technology to get to that point, because I know a lot of folks that are using it, they're just using like for flat distances, because once you
Yeah.
get onto a hill, you're
It's a hard climb.
It's
That
a
mountain's a
hard-
hard climb.
As an EV owner, I will say it's really exciting to watch your state of charge actually increase when
Yeah.
you're going down.
Yes. So yeah, like I said, we let the big guys handle that, but I don't know that we have a pier that would even be going across a mountain, like after the
Yeah.
mountain to even
To
replicate
prepare.
what
Yeah.
they would be doing, but.
There's a few in Colorado, but it's a very different kind of like, it's a much shorter run, but they are using EVs, but they've had some different difficulties with those.
Yeah.
Right.
I just had to ask.
Yeah.
I would be opposed to testing,
Yeah,
driving one of our 35s over the hill and back, we'll see.
yes.
So. Hey, we're closer.
If you wanna tow it back.
This is a very like base level question, but I'm also the only member of the Board of Supervisors who was not on when the Acton Express was coming online. So I just confess, I don't know what the funding support arrangement for the kind of out area partners of Albemarle and Charlottesville that y'all have. Can you help walk me through it?
Yes, we had funding commitments, that was part of getting the demonstration grant. We had to show that we did have financial commitment. So we received financial commitment from all of our partners, the east and the west side. I believe it is but 50-50 down the middle for each side, and then the different metrics were based on the different sides of the mountain. So I know Stanton, Augusta, Waynesboro, they split it by the third, but over here UVA takes on a lot of it, and then Albemarle and Charlottesville take on the split of that difference. So we had that initial 4-year commitment, and then I believe we fill out the Zoom grant application through Charlottesville, and I think Albemarle shares that as well. So we've been filling that in for each year for our local funding commitment. So like I said, we had those original figures, and then we applied for CHIP, so that has been decreased and will incrementally increase as the years go on.
And we want to take this time to specifically thank Scott at the University of Virginia.
Partners, it comes from the permit residents.
And I'm sure your employees are also very happy, so.
Yeah, I was actually, I was skimming through our water queue, I was kind of hoping that we, so I think I said before, and I probably owe this committee an update on water queue, but we do $500 a month raffle as an incentive, and I was kind of hoping that one of our winners was an Acton Express rider. And then we've got everybody else, walkers, bicyclists, cab riders, who have not only not had to pay to ride the bus or park a car, but they've then also gotten this extra incentive.
Yeah,
It's a great program.
whenever we do pop-ups, we're always like, how do you like the free rides? And they are like ecstatic that they get that.
So would you explain, Scott, to us, you referenced they gave up something, and I didn't understand quite what it was.
Right, so, and that's what I said, I probably should bring Patrick in here and do a nice update. In fact, he owes me a report that's due tomorrow for a Wahoo commute update, since we've been launched for about 6 months. But essentially the way it works is we have a commuter incentive agreement. And so if you are an annual permit holder, if you have a parking permit, most of our permits are annual. You have to give that up in order to get the $1.50 a day for riding or walking, using anything that doesn't take a vehicle to grounds. So that's what you're giving up. But then knowing that not everybody can ride transit or walk every single day, we allow them to buy a daily parking permit, but only in the commuter parking, so a JPJ.
JPJ, I got that, that makes sense. Anybody else have any questions? Yeah.
You said that the stop and stand used to be at the mall?
Yes.
But where is it now?
It's at the Stanton Crossing Park and Ride. So Stanton has like that big swath of development that can, like land that's ready for development. So one of the projects was a park and ride lot as well as a thoroughfare road. So they have a brand new road, crossing way, that cuts through there, as well as a park and ride lot with a bus pull through and shelter.
Okay, thanks.
Yes.
We should talk. About Crozet.
Oh, yes. Yeah, we have a meeting with Albemarle
Of,
tomorrow about the parking ride.
of JAUNT's service area, and in Crozet alone for workforce, we're circulating over 25,000 commuters a year, so. We've been talking with VDOT about stopping there in addition to our current stops as well, and I want to collaborate on our messages. Also, we're able to do more runs a day than you all are, and I wonder if in service to the people of Crozet, if there is some service that you might run at different times than you do now, just to Crozet, and then we could, it's like connecting the routes, so we can get people into the city and Albemarle County more often by combining our efforts.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Yes. That's great. Yeah, shoot me an email, or I can shoot you an email, and yeah, we can get a meeting on the books. That'd be a great connection.
That's why we're all at the table, so we can all talk,
I
right?
just have two
Yes.
questions. I'm sorry if you addressed this and I missed it, but is this open to everyone, not just commuters?
Yes, it is open to everyone, so we do tell folks, like a lot of our area residents will be like, I need to get over to UVA for a medical appointment. We always tell them, I always suggest taking that last route, getting over to Charlottesville, grabbing lunch at Wegmans or in Fifth Street Station while you wait for the next bus that comes across, because there is that gap because it is for commuters. But if you can make the schedule work beyond commuting need.
And we all know Afton Mountain can be particularly treacherous in weather. Has that been a barrier for you at all, or have you been able to run every time?
Yeah, we are very cautious about weather. Usually fog we seem to be pretty okay with, but any type of inclement weather, like I said, those snow days in January and February, the buses are not four-wheel drive, so we do err on the side of caution, which luckily right now most of our riders do own a car and have the option to telework in most departments too. So we take that into consideration when we're calling those snow days. It'll be a little bit more of, especially because the bus starts so early versus bright starting, that like 5 a.m. They're getting up at 3 a.m. to get the buses ready to go. So we are cognizant that we do have a little bit of leeway with those workers that are having their own means of transportation or are able to telework. So we're a little bit more vigilant on calling that service.
Thank you.
To reserve a spot, can you just show up? Or?
Yes, yeah,
Okay.
It's public transportation still. It's just labeled with that commuter route. So yeah, you just show up to the bus stop and board the bus.
And you take
No
cash?
reserves? You're not reserving?
Yeah, you're not reserving.
Right, yeah,
You're
that's
just-
what I was clarifying. So
Yeah.
how do you manage, like, is there ever like too many people?
We actually just encountered this problem this year, which is a good problem to encounter. Which is another reason why we're looking at that schedule to try to get that frequency a little bit tighter, because the bus is traversing such a long route and the trips are linked, so like 2 and 4 are linked. So the bus 2 comes over, comes back, starts its route again, and comes back over. So we're hoping that that consultant can minimize that time gap a little bit, because right now, like if the bus were full, then you would have to wait if it hits capacity, which right now I think it's hit capacity like 3 or 4 times. So luckily, hopefully that consultant looking at the schedule, so if you pop on the bus, it's full, you can say, oh, only 30 minutes, I can go get a coffee while I wait for the next bus.
And then, yeah, is it like a card?
So yeah, we do accept cash. We do not have app just yet. We're not as large of a service to really start looking at that just yet for fare collections, but it's either cash or we do have the 10 ride fare card. So folks who are commuting regularly usually get a fare card if they're not part of the Wahoo commute program.
And does cash mean actual cash or a
Actual
card
cash.
as well?
Yeah, just actual cash.
And you can give change?
No, we cannot give
There
change.
you go, okay, so you have to have the
You have to
correct.
have those 3 crisp dollar bills.
Yeah.
Or coins. We do not discriminate.
Can't have it.
Not
kind of
except
changes
for,
that.
yeah, except for payment via card.
Well, that makes sense.
What size buses are these?
No, I did not say they're between about 28 passenger to 30, 32. So yeah.
Mobility devices?
Yes.
How many?
All of them are accessible, all buses.
No, I'm
Oh,
sorry.
how many?
How many mobility devices could you accommodate on a given trip?
I know at least one, but maybe two. Thank you, Garland.
Really great presentation
Awesome. Well,
and
thank you.
fascinating information.
So much.
Lucinda is going to share out your presentation as well as the presentation that was in our packet.
Yes.
To separate it out from the packet so that, and I think because everybody might like to have that. I know I'd like to share it with the board of supervisors.
Yes, and always feel free to email me if you need any additional information.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, sorry, I have one more question. Apologies that it's coming after
No,
the wrap up.
no, it's good, it's fine.
So for the Charlottesville to Shenandoah Valley commuters, the Stanton Crossing seems kind of in the middle of nowhere. Where do they go from there?
Yes, so once they go from there, you do have to walk a little ways to get to Route 250, which would be where you could pick up a Bright bus, as long as it's during Bright hours. So yeah, our long-term goal is to connect Bright with Afton, but right now we just don't see that. We see some need, but not enough to prompt starting the buses at like 5 a.m. for 3 people. So right now it's not connecting as well. I think again, like that last morning run on Afton, you might be able to see some connection. But otherwise, yeah, if they got off there, it would either be someone would be picking them up or they could make the walk to 250 and flag down a Bright bus.
Got it. Okay, thanks.
And I do have another question, so. What accommodation do you all suggest? I mean, everybody, all parents have issue with, they've gone somewhere and the child gets sick in the middle of the day and they need to come home.
Yes.
What are the accommodations that they can tap into?
Yes, so they are eligible for the Guaranteed Ride Home program if they're signed up through Rideshare, which is our shared program with TJPDC. So if, they get a call from the school, your child is violently ill, please come pick them up. They can get a ride, either Uber or a taxi now, and they get that voucher or reimbursement forms that they can later put into TGPDC and CSPDC to get reimbursed for that ride. So yeah, we do acknowledge, like you're taking a chance by coming 45 minutes away from your home and like what happens if your child gets sick. So we do have that program in place.
As many of us have experienced over the years. Doesn't happen a lot, but it does happen occasionally.
It does happen occasionally.
All right. Any other comments or questions? We're good? This was really great.
Yeah, thank you all
very
so much.
Yes. Yes. All right. Dan, I think you're on again. You're going to give us an update on the Regional Transit Authority working group.
Yeah, so I'm not gonna get up into a presentation for this one, and I may phone a friend if I miss anything. So we've had 2 different meetings of the CARTA board at this point. We've kind of been doing the mundane details of CARTA. We've been working through the bylaws, which we've now adopted. Public meeting policy, we've adopted that as well. The next step is identifying which partners, the non-voting partners that will be invited to participate in CARTA. So we introduced that as a discussion topic at the last meeting. We directed a staff to come back with a recommendation of different potential partners that we could bring to the table in the short term. It may be a situation where we only bring one recommendation, UVA being the most obvious one. But there may be other opportunities for bringing people to the table for that. We're also looking at who could potentially serve on a technical committee to provide oversight over all the technical work that we'll be doing to support the prioritization work. And we've also determined that it's time to start talking to our finance people. They've been sort of clamoring. I don't know if that's been the case at the county, but I've had our finance and budget people say, what's this CARTA thing? What are you guys talking about in there? And I said, let us get to the table first and then we'll bring you guys along. And so it's time to catch them up. I know Ann is going to her staff and talking to them about, this is what's going on, this is what we need to come to the table with the city about. We're having the same conversations on the city side, and we'll be scheduling soon a conversation between both staffs together so that we can start talking about sort of the nitty-gritty details about funding and things like that. So those are sort of the big points. Did I miss anything else that we're working on for
I don't
Christine?
think so. Good.
Sarah?
Do you have a question?
Any questions?
It might be good, I do think as we pass some of these documents, like the bylaws, it might be good to share them out with this group.
Yeah, that's good.
Because we have passed a few, for this group to see them. Other than that, are there any other
Yes,
questions?
that question about non-voting members, I presume it's the CARTA board makes that decision. Is there a criteria, thought process, any way for public input on that? Speaking as a representative of a non-voting member who will still want to have voice in things, but understanding this is a different organization, it may not be appropriate to be sitting at the table like I am right now, but curious what the process might be.
The process is basically and you guys correct me if I'm wrong, that the elected members would be the ones extending an invitation to the non-voting members. We did start the conversation in our last meeting and talk about, there are some options here. There are people from nonprofit community, there are major employers, there are transit agencies themselves, there are state agencies that we want to consider if any of them make sense being at the table. So we had some deliberation at the last meeting. I think we're going to continue having more deliberation at the next meeting because we didn't really come to a very clear consensus about what the direction of that needed to be. It seemed that UVA was the most obvious one to bring to the table as a partner, just being the largest regional employer and also a major destination for people in the region. So beyond that, I think it's going to be really up to the electeds to figure out who else comes to the table.
I missed that meeting, so I'll look back at the recording. Those are recorded, right?
Yeah, they're on the transit planning website, on the TJPDC website. There's a CARTA page now.
Discussion was, thank you.
And they are open to the public, of course. I will say though that they're not in this room.
Yeah.
We've been meeting in the conference room, so if you come to this door, you're gonna be locked out. You need to use the other door, because we had somebody that tried to get to the last meeting and this door was locked. So I'm just making sure that everybody is aware.
Yeah.
Now that we're gonna be going every other month, we can also move them into here.
Well, that's fine too.
Yeah.
I was just saying that, I just wanna make sure people knew that
Yeah.
that they can't get in that door, they should go to the other door.
It may get a little bit cozy as we start adding.
Yeah,
Yeah.
people will need a larger space, that's for sure.
As long as the agenda notes what room it's in, it'll be easier for me to find it.
Yeah.
I was just going to briefly note, I think you said this, but in case it was not called, we are statutorily constrained on the number of members that we can add to the RTA, and quite literally, we cannot add all the members of the RTP into the RTA. There will be a winnowing down to core membership. That doesn't mean that they can't participate via like a traditional public can't, doesn't mean they can't be in the room. It will be a much leaner organization.
Yes, but we do have some committees that people could be tapped to serve on.
Yeah,
So,
and we are talking through how bringing an amendment to the bylaws so that that's easier for us to fill those committees.
But again, any revisions in the bylaws are gonna have to meet the code. As of right now, the limitations
Yes.
are written into the legislation.
Correct.
any other comments or questions? Thank you, Darren.
I'll just reiterate what I said earlier, the sooner we can start talking with our delegates and our senator about next year's General Assembly, the better. They're really great to work with, so.
And it's been several years now, but we did invite Senator Deeds to a regional transit partnership meeting a few years ago and talked to him about that this was coming. Of course, he has a lot on his plate that this is coming, but you're exactly right, we do need to start reaching out. All right, if that's, thank you so much, that was really great. Our transit provider update, that item is next, and Jamie, you are first on the list, Albemarle County Public Schools.
Okay. I always think it's, what will people be interested in and what we're working on. We got a lot of stuff going on internally. We are upgrading to a new routing software. So we start training next week. That'll be a heavy lift for us, and we'll be running 2 databases to start the school year next year. But it will open up an opportunity for us to use a Where's the Bus type of app next year. So we'll pilot that first and then have that hopefully by springtime for our parents. And we too are starting a fleet advisory committee, so you may or may not know, but across the school division, all the departments, they order all their own non-school bus vehicles, so we're kind of pulling all of that in and we'll do all the maintenance and repairs, which we do anyways, but we will be monitoring all the utilization of those vehicles and prioritizing, you know, how they'll be used next year. So we formed a team with some principals and other department staff, and we have our first meeting next week. We've just seen like all of the other partner agencies increases in special needs and needing to use third-party vendors. And the schools have a lot of different uses during the day that they're using non-school buses for. So trying to get a hold on the vans. So there's something.
Well, I know Lansland campus has appreciated the van that's over there to get kids for dental services. So
Yeah.
thank you for that.
Yeah, I mean, the schools just, they want more and more, and we're trying to be creative with how we help them.
Any questions for Jamie?
Yeah, I've got to
Yeah.
ask a nerdy question. What is the software that you're switching from and what are you switching
So
to?
we use Tyler Technologies, and it's an upgrade from their software, but it has a few more better applications.
Okay,
It
so
uses more
you're still
generative
using
AI and
Versatrans,
things that should be more helpful. So it's Versatrans up to, they call it school transportation,
Okay.
Versa. But it's the same software company.
Okay, any other questions for Jamie? We're delighted you're here today, thank you. Yeah. And Scott, UTS.
Yes, the semester is rapidly winding up, so we are in our last full week of academic full service. We'll go to exam mode when the students start their exams next week. And then shortly thereafter, we'll be able to call recess service, which basically means UTS will be Monday through Friday, all the way up until classes resuming in the fall in August. So summer is a little bit of a breather. It's still Monday through Friday with summer session and with our health system commuters. So not a whole lot of updates. We took our e-jests. They have been in service. We're doing sort of a temporary parking shuttle service between orthopedics on Ivy Road and some off-site parking because we're doing a lot of construction and there's about 75 people that we can no longer park on site. And so we're using our e-jests and they've been wonderful for getting folks back and forth from 2420 Old Ivy Road across under the railroad tracks and turning right onto Ivy Road. So you've probably seen them if you've been on 250.
So those are the smaller buses?
Yes, those are our new
That's
electric buses,
great,
yes.
yes. Because they'll go under those railroads.
Yep, they fit under the tracks, they're very maneuverable, they drive like a car, honestly. I haven't driven one, but the drivers like them, they've been working really well for us. We took them, we have student operations interns that we had one this year who's been really good on Instagram. I'm not much on social media, but follow UTS on Instagram. And
The
just look at
newest
some of their
video that
videos.
you all put out with the slide, yeah, the cha-cha slide, that was great.
I was told, I don't know, I haven't independently verified this, but I was told that was the highest UVA Instagram read of any Instagram, UVA Instagram, so it was UTS Instagram. So we took the bus to the lawn, that's also an earlier reel, I guess it's called a reel, on Instagram.
Old fashioned word, but.
So we took the buses onto the lawn on April 3rd, I think, and students loved them too. So yeah, everybody's looking at it, everybody's enjoying them, so.
That's great.
They're adorable.
They're really good, yeah. Well, as someone who represents Old Ivy Road and the folks, I am thrilled that we have the small buses and those railroad track bridges are no longer a barrier, so that's great.
So we're, I've had a meeting tomorrow to start talking about some other ways that we can start using them in other interesting ways. So still haven't wrapped them, if you've noticed they're still plain white, but we intend as soon as we can agree on what they should look like, get them wrapped, but we're not holding back on putting them into service where we see fit, so.
Well, the Great Star development is coming.
Yes.
And you're gonna have a lot of employees over there to get students together. Yeah, that's great. All right, any other questions for Scott?
Not a question, but just I like the putting them in service even unwrapped I know Kat did that when we got our new buses, and it kind of highlighted, hey, we got new buses. Like, you can see this one's new, it hasn't been, you know, because once they're wrapped, they kind of just look like all the other ones. And it was kind of a nice, like, alert for folks to know that they're new.
Interesting point, that's really cool, yeah. All right, Kat, Harlan, so Kat and Charlottesville schools.
Let me start with Charlottesville schools first.
Okay.
We have, we're in the process of finishing up our agreement with Dominion so that we can work through getting the infrastructure in to support 2 battery electric school buses. Those are on order. Dominion's been on site 3 times now. They're working through the mechanics of where they need to get power from, bringing the pole in to support the power boxes for charging. But the agreement we have with Dominion is they are purchasing and implementing all of the infrastructure. The 2 buses that we are buying, the agreement says that we keep them on during the summer months from noon to 4 or 5, I can't remember what it is. And that way they will use the buses as batteries to support the grid. If we do that, then we don't get charged the infrastructure cost. But it hampers our ability to use those vehicles in the middle of the day during the summer when we need them. So, but we have also put in there the agreement that we're working through that if we want to increase the number of vehicles, as long as we buy the infrastructure, that we don't have to have them on to support the grid during the same time period. But they are putting the infrastructure on the city's behalf, and they will support that. Switching to the transit side of the house. We are actively working on a similar pilot program. We've kicked that off because we've ordered the 2 vehicles. The state was very gracious in granting us authority to order 2 vehicles last fiscal year. That process has started. We've ordered them. They will be on site June of 2026. So we will have infrastructure before we take possession of those vehicles. We're working through that now, so the Dominion has been on site a couple times there. The pilot will, we talked about the replacement of the pilot information, because that's kind of the first phase. That will be, there's a selection of a portion of our current lot, which is extremely tight at the point, but we're taking out a couple of light poles. We do our lot, kind of look at the back of it. There are a couple of light poles that are on the periphery of our, where we park all our buses. They have to be taken out to support where we're going to put the rest of the vehicles. That part of it is actively being worked on by our senior project manager, Mr. White. We have what we believe are good costs for the infrastructure, what it's going to cost to support us. We've been in contact with the state. They know the timing of when our project is supposed to launch. We're building our infrastructure to support up to 8 vehicles. Not saying we want to build it up big, but it needs to be supporting 8. The initial plan is to have 6 charging with 2 supports in the mechanic shop. So we can get power to the vehicles we need to work on that. So that's phase 1. The NEPA process that Ben mentioned on our farm, we actually have kicked that off. The traffic analysis of that happened about a week and a half ago. We're hoping to get the first blush of what the draft document looks like in about 3 more weeks. And then we'll be working through, there are 6 steps that we have to go through. And then it starts to really speed up on our interaction with the state and with the feds to make sure we hit all the NEPA scoring marks so we can move forward. We've got great partners with the state, but we also have hired RK&K and WRA to do our NEPA. We think that just the interaction with them, because we've had, we've used other consultants in the past, And we're potentially gonna go back to the other consultant who we're in the design phase, so to prevent any issues with improprieties associated with the design phase with one consultant and the other, we split it off, and that's why we need a different consultant. We're moving fast. There's a lot to be considered. There's a lot of conversations about adding more service. We have a consultant, I'm actually having a meeting with them tomorrow about looking at the last, we got actually about 5 different analyses. We worked on 2, and we're having them probably work on 3. Scenarios that we'll be able to present to city council and then anybody else who wants to see it. That talks about adding more service, what it would take for us to get to 82 drivers. And then the scenario talks about more service, 30 minutes for everyone, and then potentially even 15-minute service on select routes, 5, 7, solid 6.
So you'll be reaching out to Albemarle County for some of the areas that you serve in Albemarle County?
The 5 and the 7 basically are Albemarle County.
Yeah.
You already have 30-minute service on those. We're talking about impact group and requested that those routes go to 15-minute service. So the process was, we're looking at is getting everybody to kind of a basic format where we can build ridership. That's the 30-minute model. You can't really build ridership on an hourly route. It's really just too hard to do so. So getting all of the routes to 30 minutes, and then where we know we've had success, because it's kind of the chicken or the egg. If we haven't given them service, we don't know if the ridership is going to grow or not. So get everybody to a 30-minute model. Then we look at where we've had successes, the 5 and the 7. We're at variety, high ridership already. Boosting that ridership up by giving them more frequent service.
And while I appreciate impact, reaching out to the board of supervisors as well as city council would be appropriate.
We have been.
I'm just saying.
So reaching out to the board of supervisors, I think we're reaching out to the staff.
Yes, that's fine, but I'm just saying Albemarle County.
Yes.
Because prioritization from us is also important,
So
as opposed to just impact.
We're reaching out to the staff.
Right.
And we want to make sure that we haven't really been in contact with Impact. Impact has contacted the city council.
I'm just saying.
Okay. And we are working through the scenarios that city council has asked us to work through. So that's where we are right now.
Great, sounds good. Yeah. Any questions from Road Switch Board? That sounds great. And let's just circle back around. Jamie, Carl was talking about electric buses. You want to just mention how many electric buses Albemarle County Public Schools has? 2, 3?
We have 4.
4 now. That's great. Yeah.
What's been the success rate on all 30 units?
Oh, we use them every day. I mean, we use them in, our urban ring schools.
Yeah.
They're at Greer, Woodford. Yeah.
Shorter routes.
Shorter route.
But the drivers say that the behavior is better on those buses. I rode in, one of the drivers was just crazy. Now, this is not a research study, right?
Well,
Anecdotal, right?
Yes and no.
I'm part of the drivers that
There you go, that's part of the.
Because they're less noisy?
That was what she said, I'm sorry, but when she was talking to me, she said less noisy, less smelly, and she just thought that the kids were calmer. Yeah.
We have looked at propane and other things for that reason, our sped staff is really interested in more for that reason, for behaviors.
So interesting.
Which company did you buy your electric buses for the city from? Not the school buses, but for the city, do you remember?
We are a Gillick shop.
Okay.
So, which is interesting because Katie can attest to this, that New Flyer is basically pulled out because of the tariffs. So they're not completing a lot of their orders because the tariff issues are causing them concern. We're a shop, so it's really not affecting us. Yeah, the pricing, they're telling us that we don't get our pricing here. It's probably going to spike if this tariff issue continues out. So we're playing by ear and we're going on a normal cycle and reporting when we can.
And I asked because I was with some executives from New Flyer last week at AFTA, and they were talking about how they were already going back and looking at cost changes to existing orders and adjusting for tariff prices and then adding timelines, and they were already at like something like 18 months or something like that from order to delivery, so it was just curious.
Already elongated on.
Yeah.
Fortunately, because we are in early stock, we haven't seen that yet.
Yeah.
Not blown with it, good we don't, but we'll see what happens.
We have a guild CMG in our office if anybody wants to look at.
You've seen the bill.
I'm gonna give you another infrastructure project we're looking at.
CNG, I have seen, GRTC was facing 90% CNG model down there. But I digress.
Well, I can digress and say that I was just hit $350 for tariff cost on something that I had ordered. And I mean,
It's real.
what it is. Yeah.
It's real.
It's real. Any other comments or questions? Okay, Ben, Mike, you're on. John.
I'm on day 4 of onboarding a new CFO. I'm really fortunate that Robin has stayed with me through this transition and is here to train that person. So I'm really grateful for that. I'm optimistic about our future. Hired Missy Corbin, who, if any of you are familiar with the Piedmont YMCA, she was their CFO and COO for about 8 years prior to joining us. We're hopefully sometime by the end of May, early June, going out to survey ridership and other stakeholders so that we can get into a more regular cadence of having that information from folks. We've done some early discussion with the team at the PDC about how to best conduct that, opportunities for partnership, all in addition to talking to some other community partners. I think I've talked about that we want to advance a communications and marketing strategy at JAUNT. We had a successful RFP process where we selected 3 vendors for various capabilities out of a pool of 26. And our first task order is out on the street with those folks right now and due by Thursday. So we'll be commencing that work fairly quickly with a first deliverable due by the end of the fiscal year. So we're really excited about that. I'm less excited, as I know Katie Miller is, about attending Project Sync meetings, which is a Dominion federal grant that we were really excited about at the beginning and has been kind of a poor match thus far for our service area. For a number of reasons, one of which being the grant didn't anticipate the need for the actual rolling stock itself, and accounted for the idea that the vehicles need to charge out in the wild, but didn't account for the idea that you need to have a charger in your depot. And so there's some things, had I been present at the time we wrote the grant, I might have asked different questions. So those things have been difficult. I'm hoping we're making progress because they're entertaining more creative ideas like leasing some of the rolling stock and making charging available at the depot. There's a go, no-go date by July 1 that I'm carefully observing to decide when we'll continue to partner. Katie could probably go on from DRPT's perspective, but she'll get her chance. I am participating in 2 state groups being convened by DRPT. One's on coordinated human services mobility, where we've seen Lucinda and Taylor, and then also on a strategy advisory for rural transit agencies. That's really about I'll be careful about the way I phrase this. Not that 5311 is actually contracting so much as it is that the influx of resources during the COVID era is gone, and so many more people have come into the pool that it may feel like it's gotten smaller over these next couple of years. Not so much in this new year that's about to start, but in future years, there's a little bit of a concern where there is that gap on the bar chart, and so we're talking about that. With, I'm sorry, KFH, is that who has that contract?
The RLS is the 5311.
No, who's got the,
Oh, the 5310?
who's got the 5311, the rural transit, who's the consultant group working? It happens to be
Oh,
Jen.
RLS, yeah, no, RKK, sorry.
Yeah, Jen DeBrule is actually leading the project, so.
Well, that's cool.
Yeah.
Very good.
One of the things that will happen with new funding is we're slightly further ahead than CAT on a major parking lot project. And that will be an advancement and incredibly disruptive all at once. So we'll see how that goes. We have, in the last year, advanced 20% drawings and engineering, and there's work to do. Both on site and with the planners at the city in order to get that done. And finally, we're looking forward to, like Jamie, a number of software advancements over the next year. And prepping our team for that, now so that we can hit the ground running when the dollars become available.
Great. Any questions for Mike? Mike, maybe in June, you could bring your new CEO. CFO, sorry, not CEO.
She's welcome to
the alphabet. Bring her and introduce her, just introduce her to the group. Because you're doing your budget.
I don't know. I'm waiting to hear. We did ask. Are we dialed in for budget?
I don't know, anyway, I don't want to start a rumor. Yeah, but I thought so too. So it might be funny for you to bring her, just introduce her. And sorry about the alphabet soup, but anyway.
I am very prone to your power of suggestion in this particular, and I'll do my very best.
All right, any other questions then? And we'll move on to Katie, DRPT.
All right. Well, yeah, between RK&K, which is where Jen is, and RLS is where Neil went, it's hard to keep track of which former DRPT or employees are at which consultant firms now. But yes, I will touch on Project Sync. We have definitely appreciated JAUNT's feedback and patience throughout the process. I think it's kind of taken a different shape between a lot of turnover at the DOE level and then also at the Dominion level, and that their chosen consultant firm, it's taking a different shape. They have their interim business report out now that they're working on, and so I think it still left a lot of questions after our review that we did, but hopefully at least having something more concrete can help to guide us a little bit more. So we'll still work forward on that one. And then with the tariffs, so the state contract for New Flyer vehicles has been frozen. Probably in a really good way. There's language in all of our state contracts that put a cap on the escalation due to tariffs for costs. And understandably, New Flyer doesn't want to have to take all of the costs in-house. And since there's still just a lot of uncertainty as what that is going to look like, they're not accepting any new Virginia orders off that state contract. So working to get that sorted out. I think hopefully we'll know more, but we're kind of in a holding pattern right now with that. The biggest thing right now is that the draft SIP has been released. So our proposed projects, I would highly recommend taking a look at our data portal. Hopefully lots of exciting projects for the area. I hope that you guys are as excited about them as we are. We definitely had a lot of hard decisions to make this year, but I also would recommend May 7th in Culpeper is the public hearing. And then you can also submit any public comments online via email through May 21st is the deadline to have any comments in on the draft SIP. And then that will be approved in June by the CTV.
Any questions for Katie? We're hearing some scary changes for Smart Scale, but I'll just leave it at that, about funding.
Okay, yeah, Smart Scale is not really my wheelhouse, but hopefully.
Scary things about skin in the game for Smart Scale increasing dramatically, which is scaring all of us.
Mhm.
Anyway, I guess that's it for you, unless there's some questions. And thank you very much, my dear, appreciate it. Yeah. And with that, the only other business I have is that our minutes reference the May 28th and 29th conference. I think it's in Richmond, Lucinda. Did you send out some information for that?
Sure.
Danny was suggesting that some of us might want to go, and I would be interested if it works for me and wherever, so just send out the information and see who might like to go. It would be great. And I know it's only 5:30, and we're supposed to be here till 6.
Can't go.
Having said that, hearing no objections, I will adjourn us to June the 26th at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, the same place. But you all have a great great couple. Pull up perfect hat.
So I did a sort of follow-up question about that user cost save thing. So I understand that like the people that use who log their trips, that's pretty solid data.